Good evening, folks. My name is Gabriel Cleveland, and I'm the managing editor for CavanKerry Press. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the latest in CavanKerry's series of virtual readings celebrating our new and forthcoming releases. Before the reading begins, we wanted to take a moment to acknowledge that the land we occupy in Bergen County, New Jersey belongs to the Lenni Lenape people. We honor their history. We cannot function in our work as arts activists nor offer a safe space for all writers without understanding the struggle for Indigenous rights. Additionally, we join arts organizations across the country in celebrating Black History Month and in honoring the vital contributions of Black authors to the development of American literature and culture. We encourage each of you to support the publication of Black authors across the industry by purchasing their work wherever it may be published, not just in February, but always. Now I will pass the baton to our Marketing and Communications Director, Dimitri Reyes, to introduce tonight's readers.
Peace and poetry, peace and love, and peace and power, everyone. Thank you for joining us on another installment of our CavanKerry Press reading series. You are all in for such a treat today on Facebook, on YouTube, where it will also be recorded, and on Zoom. I have two brilliant, and wonderful beings with me this evening. Activists, folks that work in the community with student populations, and wonderful authors as well. We are celebrating this evening David Cho, who will be releasing his book very soon this month, but you could still secure this book for 20% off if you order it from our website. Our brilliant marketing coordinator will be putting that link in the chat. We also have Tanto Tanto by Marina Carreira, also available for pre-order. Marina's book will be launching next month with us during Women's History Month, but this is a sneak peek to her brilliance. Let me tell you the run of show for this evening. This evening, we will begin with Marina. I'll read her bio. She'll read for some time. Then we will transition over to David Cho, and we will celebrate his launch. Afterwards, we will have a Q&A. I really like utilizing the chat during this time. So if you hear some beautiful poetic goodness, if you hear something that is emotionally intuitive, something that takes you, something that fills you up with passion, please put that in the chat, and our authors are sure to see that after their reading is over. Also in the Q&A, we'll be taking questions. So any questions that you have for either David or Marina during this time, please put that in the chat box, and then we'll get to it at the Q&A section after both of those readers. Lastly, I will also want to give a shout out to some of my other New Jersey loves, Isabel Y. Gonzalez and Lynn McHenry, which I see on here. Hello. I miss you all dearly, and I'm so happy that you're here. So without further ado, I am going to begin with Marina Carreira's bio. Okay, hold up. I am now going to begin with Marina Carreira's bio. Perfect. Marina Carreira, she, her, hers, is a queer Luso-American writer and multimedia artist from Newark, New Jersey. She is the author of Save the Bathwater by Get Fresh Books 2018, and I Sing to That Bird Knowing He Won't Sing Back by Finishing Line Press in 2017. Marina is a recipient of the Sundress Academy for the Arts Summer 2021 Residency Fellowship. As a visual artist, she has exhibited her work at Morris Museum, Art Front Galleries, West Orange Arts Council, and Monmouth University Center for the Arts, among others. Everyone, I would love to welcome you, Marina Carreira.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you to David for letting me celebrate his book, which I can't wait to have in my hands as well. And thank you all for joining us. I can't think of a better thing to do tonight than share a space with David and you know, talk about our stories with you all. So yeah, you know, to echo Gabe and Dimitri, Tanto Tanto is coming out next month. I'm very excited. Thank you to CavanKerry for supporting this love story about just two queer girls in New Jersey trying to make it. And I will be sharing some of that work with you tonight. Baby steps. Oh, I want to start my timer because I've been known for going over. And I want to make sure that I leave space for David's brilliance too. Baby steps. This is the first line where I compare fucking you to being swallowed by a wave so blue it's another planet, and so big, McNamara surfing Praia do Norte big. Then I cross out fucking, call it making love instead because you've softened every edge of my tongue. Still, I am ballsy. I follow with a list of sexy images. The sun a mango in the sky, your hand a butter knife over the spread of my legs. Our pink mouths, two schoolgirls running toward anything pink. Public bathrooms as private islands, breath like cartoon birds circling the hair knocked out by the turtle. I extend this metaphor. Talk about how our fate rides on this turtle's back, that if we have faith, we'll get somewhere. The key, go slow, baby steps. I change gears though, contradict everything I said about the turtle to tell you my favorite place in the world is now your back seat. I use lines like not fast enough and bedtime feels a lifetime without you. Heavy alliteration follows nonsensically, not knowing anything newer, memory making mincemeat of me, feeling all the feels. Then comes the line where I say how scared I am. Then the line about how scared you are. Wild Horses plays on the radio. Wild horses gallop across the page. A fire burns in your father's village. I talk about silence, how we are kindling to kerosene. In this end line, neither of us are sorry. So that was actually the first Ars Poetica and only Ars Poetica I ever wrote. So thank you. What the Water Gave Me. And this is after Frida Kahlo's 1938 painting by the same name. The name where everyone forgets the N or adds another A, making me Maria or Mariana or any other immigrant's daughter, or where boats live or of the sea, the ephemera of my grandfather, spools, needles, and tins of thread, crisply folded bills that shine like emeralds in bathwater. The twins' reflection once tinted steel against the buzzing skyline. The Dairy Queens and Bodega Kings looking for loose change on the riverbank. The dresses that never made me the woman my mother hoped for. The birds never returned to a vase cage. The respite from dark woods after dark-hearted men took what they never asked for. All the lovers I buried with beautiful lamentations. All the siblings I drowned and the one I couldn't. All the seahorses carrying my daughter's dreams. All the carnations blooming from my wife's palm. At the foot of this claw-footed haven, blood-red toes like black holes at the center of a galaxy, dazzling with fire and ice, and I dizzy in my own becoming. This is the longest poem I've ever written. While 6 planets retrograde, I consider mandalas an America. I'm too American and not American enough to know what a mandala is, how it could be useful. My immigrant family taught me that if something has no real use, it isn't really real. And if mandalas are just symbols for the universe, how do they pay a water bill, put meat on plates, keep children from orphanages of steel? What can a dreamer who knows dreams are circus clowns do with a search for the self? How do I find myself in the midst of chaos, looking for answers to all the questions? Will fascism reign another 4 years? Will we be deep faked to death? Will Black lives ever matter? Will we transhumanity? And can a mandala help at all? How do I explain the practicality of art to my late grandmother, who didn't come to America to raise no artist, didn't leave mother and siblings behind in a village buttoned by olive fields to work as a maid at the Ramada, freeze meat in plastic bags, walk me to and from catechism, learn good morning and bye-bye for the mailman dogs, all for me to talk about mandalas, much less my pride and first generationism, to shout off the rooftops of a page that no human is illegal, to write poems in the 2 languages she was analphabeta in. How do I explain the energy of mandalas in a prayer to my dead grandfather, who didn't come to America to raise no socialist? There was nothing more he believed in than the American dream, who saves time, money, and bathwater to tailor suits for up and coming second generation studs, hung Reagan calendars on humming refrigerators in hopes his money and Hollywood machismo would trickle down to his son, uncle who went from owning a mechanic shop to wearing a MAGA hat and pretending his niece wasn't always the kind of woman who scare men like him, the kind who knows capitalism and patriarchy are the root of all evil. How do I convince my father of the power of mandalas? My father, who didn't come to America to raise no queer, didn't leave his father's fields and tractor and shadow of his brother's white collars, his soccer buddies and hitchhiking youth to work construction in grimy tri-state cities under Local 472, a proud union man who paid for both his daughters' colleges without ever owing a credit card, who tells me all people are equal and should live their truth unless those truths hurt people like him, to raise a daughter who knew better than to marry a man who knew better and married a woman. How do I tell my mother that a mandala I saw in Morristown reminded me of being her child? My mother, who didn't come to America to raise no feminist, who dropped out of East Side at 15 because white folks taught her to fear books and Black girls, who worked at Bita's Bakery and Lucy's Hair Fashion and dealt with a mother who didn't know how to be a mother, enabled a husband who didn't know how to be a husband, raised 2 children who didn't know that she didn't know, but always blamed her for not knowing, who drowned her sorrows in telenovelas, only to have a daughter who teaches her kids that the most important thing to know, you don't have to be good to be good. And I'm sure there's a mandala out there for all of them. Fierce lines, bold spheres, and light waves exploding in possibility. There are divine mandalas abounding in electric blue, menstrual red, the thick yellow of August that can center me, while Mercury, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and little Pluto retrograde, and show a va and a voix, mai ipai, that although I am not the woman they came to America for, I am the woman fighting alongside folks like them, because the most beautiful mandala is not the one teeming with a geometry everyone recognizes, but the one that places you inside a dialect for resistance that reminds you an image is its own tongue. So when I was a kid in Portugal, I spent almost all my summers in Portugal with my grandparents, and they lived in a very tiny village where there was really nothing to do besides find things to do. And one of the things I would do with my cousin would be to pick the snails off the garden wall and make them race. So you can only imagine how tedious of an activity this was for 9, 10-year-olds. But it also, I think, serves as a metaphor for how childhood looks very different, right, for me as opposed to my children. So I love snails. I actually just got a snail tattooed on me. So this is a poem about snails. And it's called Apology to the Snails I Crushed in My Youth. I inherited cruelty, the sordid belief that to be big is to break something smaller. A vase garden, the town square, my fat little fist, a mighty guillotine over their soft bodies, the sun a magnifying glass of good intentions. In the mornings, I trek over gendered rituals with tired tentacles, smile at the swat of sadness, crack at my kids' screamy demands for gentle brushing and more milk. I come apart at the cruelty of silence against sleep. Last night, I told my family, be grateful. Home is wherever we carry our hearts. Simone clapped her chubby hands together and said, God, what are we using our story for? How super to be small and believe in bigger things. The body. I envy your faith in the body, in its ability to cope, heal, suffer the battles biology, ecology, man wage against it. A bellyache, a bitten tongue, a black eye. Alzheimer's, cancer, GHB. God only gives you a cross heavy enough to bear, but he never considered how hard the straw is on the camel, what it's survived. A woman's body, what you deem insurance against hurricanes, viruses, racism, and divorce. Even after watching Gloria Steinem interview a Congolese woman burned and raped by 20 men 10 years ago. She lived, you said, but what does her body house now but the banshees of youth? Cataracts that see through things, planets of scars, a blood-pumping grenade, an ache so viscous and vicious, so wide, the great flood becomes a shower. In spite of every prayer I fake, despite how much Steinem says otherwise, our bodies more often than not are a forgotten Aldea, a blood-stained skirt on the line, a lover's dirty boots at the door, children chanting rhymes about cats, a steaming pot of soup on the stove, humming, humming. Just want to check my time. Okay. Savage Beauty. And this is a poem after Alexander McQueen. In the interstitial room of morning, we wake more animal than anything. Holes and lids, fur and folds pinned, tucked, and ruched to form the perfect functioning beast at the desk, in the cubicle, behind the wall, against the window, at the top of the highest building we unjump from. By night we feral back, fairy horned hearts into ribbed nests, waiting to witness the most magnificent thing in the world flutter from the eye socket of the full moon. We need such savage beauty, monarchs and murmurations, swallows creasing against orchids, carnations twirling cigarettes, snapdragons with Swiss Army knives, marigolds and magnolias nippling the breasts of unseen gods, bloody roses and blood red rosaries. I was raised to pray for beautiful things, feathered, daggered, and dangerous replacements for mothers on days where we leave the house, not in our body, but in a bag of mewling kittens, like the one my grandfather buried before the mother cat could tell. So my collection is called Tanto Tanto, and it's Tanto is Portuguese. I'm the daughter of Portuguese immigrants. Tanto means a lot, and when you say something is Tanto Tanto, you mean a lot, a lot. And I wanted, you know, I wanted this collection to really emphasize, you know, how love in its many forms, right, fill us to the brim, to the point where there's so much of us, right, to be and to do because of it. So I'm going to read you one of the title poems, and it's called Tanto Tanto. Joy like the pit of a dusty peach inside the dark, when you drum on the steering wheel in traffic, when my leg crosses over yours in a sleepy wave, when finches fly from your mouth like psalms. I'm impossibly full, but still ravenous at the thought of your palm grazing against my thigh like a 2-day-old balloon, making its way across the yard to the child, ready for every pop and pull. Wild, hungry joy finds me finding every way to laud a universe that always provides, but that you only praise when my soft fists become the treehouse your father never built. Like I'm already dead. Like I'm already dead. A carnation in a dim funeral parlor, corpse stiff in burgundy. Sit your knees on the little stool. Rest your head on my stuffed belly. Tell me again how your favorite day in the history of the world is June 30th. Describe how hard the rain slammed against our car that night. How hard our first kiss made us. Tell me how you first said I love you by accident, how I didn't shave until you returned from Portugal that summer, that even at my most, I am still the one your soul loves. Hold my hand in the hush. Like I'm already ash, the shit gray of pines after fires ravaged most of Bairro Alto. Tell me about your day at work, how the office was a circus tent, how the administration fails the teachers and teachers fail the students and students fail each other and everyone goes home anxious and unable to do anything but sit in front of a screen for hours swiping and waiting to do it all again tomorrow. Tell me you're over the moon at having married someone who cares tanto tanto in the face of fierce American apathy. Sing me your affection. Like I'm already a ghost. At the top of the stairs, hands soft as silk, bare feet on the too cool floor, humming a fado closer to him, burst through the door and slip that fat silver ring you gave me years ago onto my barely there finger. Close the curtains we just bought. Accept my apology and call night by some other name, dark bulb or expired light. Remind me that dinosaurs never became extinct, but phantasms. Their bones aid memoirs of what love wore 70 million years ago. Open mouth laugh till you're dead too. And I want to end with a poem that celebrates the queer body, and it's called Sonnet for This Queer Body. And thank you, everyone, again. Hail the double take of white men when I walk past, head bald and big earringed, smear of incandescent pomegranate over my pout. Praise the mom pouch poking over the faux leather painted on my legs. The O's grandmas emit when I make way for them in the supermarket. Compliments to the claws painted black and pink, gold ringed hands that write poems to a world always extending itself beyond reach. Pay tribute to the tattooed arms like pirate flags, the radical nose springing forth like alien bloom. Salute these sagging tits and coiffed cunt, these misty eyes cursing those who can't see such fucking divinity. Thank you, everyone.
My goodness. Marina, thank you. I love your work so much, and I'm so soothed to have you on our reading series and as one of our authors. Thank you. Thank you for your reading. And thank you for everything that you've done for me. I have to say that. I appreciate you so much. You are doing important work, in queer lit, and you've also done a lot of important work in NORC. So I do appreciate you for that, and I do honor you for that. Again, tanto tanto, not the inflection of my Latinate root of tanto tanto. Tanto tanto is available for pre-order. Gabe, I'm going to spotlight you just so you can hold up the book. It's on pre-order for 20% off. Awesome book, awesome deal. So please secure that before its release next month. Thank you so much, Marina. I'm going to beam you out, and I'll bring you back later for the Q&A. Everyone, thank you so much for your comments. Please start dropping Q&A questions because that will be coming later on in the reading. Okay, so now I'm going to introduce David Cho, and we are celebrating David Cho's book launch. Yay! And super cool until 12/18 for those of you looking at the recording, and everyone here until Friday. This book will still be on pre-sale until Friday. So you can also cop this for 20% off. Looking at David's bio here, and then David, you'll have the floor. David S. Cho was born and raised in the Chicago area, along with his brother and extended family, the proud children of Korean immigrants in the early 1970s. He holds a BA from the University of Illinois, MFA and MA from Purdue University, and MAT and PhD from the University of Washington, and has taught in West Lafayette and Crawfordsville, Indiana, Chicago, and Seattle and Tacoma, Washington. Formerly an associate professor of English and director of the American Ethnic Studies program at Hope College in Michigan, he now serves as the director of the Office of Multicultural Development at Wheaton College. He is the author of a chapbook, Song of Our Songs, 2010, a book of poems, Night Sessions from Us in 2011, and a scholarly monograph on 20th century Korean American novels, Lost in Transnation, 2017. Without further ado, here is David Cho.
Hi, everyone. It's great to see you. See some new faces and some old faces, and I'm so encouraged to see some of the old faces. Thank you for joining on. And wow, what a beautiful set of poems. Thank you so much for that. Hard to go after you, right? There's some profound lyrics and just beautiful imagery in those, so thank you so much. I'll try my best to follow up with that. So Gabe Dimitri, if it's okay, I'm gonna read from an old one just to start us off, a little older, so I'll just need a little bit of warm up here, okay? So they've been doing some shameless plug, but I'm just going to show you Night Session. So given what Marina read, I thought I would start with this poem, Song of Our Songs. This is also the longest poem I've ever written, and they'll be in short bursts here, so I'll try to carry on from where she led off here. Okay. So a lot of these poems will come via Chicago, my Korean American immigrant family, with some pit stops along the way in Indiana, as Dimitri read, and Seattle, and I'll just say all parts of I-90 from coast to coast, okay? So Song of Our Songs, 1. I am an insomniac. I ride at night in my kitchen. I write only on dead winter nights where of all things in Indiana, tonight it rains. What to do on these cold winter nights when rain comes down hard as sleet? What to do with rain that freezes the windows, grid through a screen? What to do with the sound of rain like the furnace here coming through the vent? 2. I would die to write a poem to my father in his tongue, Korean, the smooth roll of syllables and words which held me captive as a baby, spoken by my father, mother, and their mothers, brothers, and sisters, the tree of life, that lineage written ages ago on a scroll and shown to me. You are Punyang Cho, honor class of Korea, a Yangban. You are next. What will you do? 어떻게 할 거야? How will you make us proud? This hypnotic tongue I forgot at age 7. When my father left to sweep steel factory floors and mother would leave for Sears, bringing back small cardboard boxes of defective Han Solos, Luke Skywalkers, action figures she detected on the assembly line, saving enough money to move to the suburbs of Chicago. On that cold winter day, I was told to learn English, to utter the dim nave of the language they once learned. My mind turned like uneven gears in a clock. How to go from 안녕하세요, hello, how are you, a phrase intoned to honor, head bowed, eyes never level with an elder, to this white lady teacher smiling me in the eyes saying, hey you, how you doing? The Korean language now comes to me in pieces. 반갑습니다, nice to meet you. 배고파다, I am hungry. 안녕히 가세요, goodbye, you are leaving. It is the only language my heart knows, but my tongue so many times refuses. 3. How to write a poem in a native tongue, a tongue conceived an ocean away and brought here like a letter, shipped in a boat, silent as a ship, slipping away in the waves, postmarked, stamped, and delivered by my father. I would die to put this in a letter, in a tongue my father could read, place it in his casket like flowers, if it took that long all my life. 4. I exaggerate. There was no ship. There was no boat. I exaggerate again. There was me and mother on a plane. I was in her womb. SS placenta. 5. Today, I kissed my whiff, remembering to say kanda, or I'm leaving, an intoned phrase, half fact and supplication, as if she could say, no, stay home with me today. Do not leave for work in the early morning light. as I did as a child, fearing never to see my mother again. Kanda, she would quietly say, as if to not disturb my sleep, leaving me with only a kiss to remember. 6. Memory, you always have me groping for my past. Memory, its loss. Memory, you betray me like the kiss of Judas. Memory, I kiss you on the cheek and write. 7. I won't forget. I once visited Korea. I've been there since twice. I've been there twice since. I rode a plane the first time and saw hundreds of palm trees half sized like Koreans cramming into lines, shoving signs in my face. Sung-yoon, Yoon-shiga, Lee Sung-min. I remained silent, waiting for a voice like my father's, stern, last name first, Cho Sung-woo, and saw that the old man, fully my father, thin-waisted, tight-lipped, gray-faded suit with sharp-pointed, black-horned rims, some 30 years before the advent of madmen. Older father, Knabaji? Then I dreamt my father, his brother, their father at a Seoul tavern. How rich we were until grandfather lost his election, they said. Then the war, then mother sewing clothes out of war surplus bags. The tongues of my fathers turned in a wheel with no stop or flow. I was dreaming in Korean. I was so proud I called my parents. They were proud. Going home, I looked down at the squatty trees, the plane ascending into clouds, sunning me away, where by black hair, pale skin, and kimchi-eating, stubby body, I belonged. 8. I am here. I am at church past midnight, darkness peering in the windows, cold December air reaching through, hiss warm by the pipe heaters, clanking like a boiler of a train to begin, the sound of snow falling on the roof, the silence. Creaking wood that sounds like angels on the pews around me, or perhaps some demon ghosts sit, creaking the wood, the noise, the thought, I begin to pray. 9. I was taught to pray, bottom on heel, toes and knees on the ground, arms crossed and hands pointed upwards. We were taught to pray, all legs and arms bent straight and diagonal, curled up like the letter Z, praying to Jesus, but we looked like Buddha. We prayed silently as the rock Buddha statues I had seen as a boy. When I was a teen, someone began to cry. We all looked and cried the same. Why not? We prayed for her. We prayed for her. We prayed for her desperate need, became desperate in our prayers. We prayed as if someone were to die. We prayed like a stone, its black core aged over time, heat and pressure, what had long ago seeped from its tiny fissures, hardened into a shell. This was our silence, our meditation. Some days now, I feel like that stone, quiet, waiting to cry out. 10. If you don't believe me, ask my friends John, Steve, Mike, or Dale. Take a boy who was given away by his mother, his father, a sailor, or a rich man with mistresses, or a US vet who suddenly departed for home. Take that boy, place him with good German American or anything American parents, let him grow. Let him grow his parents' way. Let him grow to college, hardly knowing any Koreans except for what he sees on TV or in newspapers. Let him go to those Korean dry cleaners, beauty supply stores, doctor offices, or restaurants, and let him taste a jar of kimchi, fermented rice cabbage, and red pepper juice. Give him some time to get over the smell, as if something had died in the container. He'll go hungry for that hot, juice, dry cabbage, or have Tabasco sauce with his eggs, steak, or rice. He'll put it in a jar in his fridge. That is the way with us in prayer, all pickled up, far from home, and needing some spice. 11. If you don't believe me, hear my mother sing hymns, psalms, or old folk songs, narrow eyes into round saucers, throat opening, vibrating, songs that cut through the air. First my mother, then her sister, then the baritone of my father. My friends and I would play, sing, pluck our throats, try to sing vibrato too. We'd sleep when they prayed, running away with the last amens, wanting to play kickball, football, anything with the ball. Young, too young for their revival. People praying to the Ching Ching temple of the guitar string, praying like wolves in a pack, praying as the moon were full, praying to be the donkey Jesus rode into Jerusalem. People praying, praising him like the palms laid down at his arrival, bodies swaying to the music like wind-blown reeds. 20 years old, still with my friends, I laughed at the cacophony of cries. Then the light clicked on the room of darkness. Sitting in the balcony, I looked down. I knew this father they cried to, the father who told us what to do, a father who had much to say, a father who was silent, a father who wanted us home, a father who left his home, a father who killed himself to show his love. The clothes I wore, bought by my father, the language I longed for, spoken by my father, the half smile of joy I hid, modeled after my father, what life I was to live, written into my book-sized head, written by my father. God rested on the seventh day, and listening to my father's Sunday morning breathing, deep underwater breathing, I understood, so does my father. 12. This is the last one. Tonight, I'll go visit my father's grave, a place in suburban Chicago he's bought already. I'll visit that grassy spot, undug, and the plot for my mother there too, and say, 안녕히 가세요. Goodbye, you are leaving. About 2.5 times as I was instructed as a boy. My father isn't near passing away, but I'll do it anyway, hoping he will hear me across the expanse of sky, blue as a dark bruise after night rain. I'll read this in Korean and leave the poem by the gravestone to be. I'll try my best. May they tuck it away in some chest they'll carry to the grave. May that bring him comfort as he sleeps. May that bring him sweet memories of me and my mother's dreams. Passed away 5 years ago. Thank you for that. I'll just read one more from this book. It's a short one of the same name. A poem has the same name as the book with the title of the book, Night Sessions. And pardon me, I think I have to put my reading glasses on. I've hit that age, so okay, here we go. All right. That's why I should put the reading glasses on. I had the wrong page. Okay, Night Sessions. Why my Korean brothers do not talk in class, I do not know. They wait like children around a piñata, waiting to strike the teacher's question, make the world turn with silencing answers of God. Late night talks of the eternal make them sleepy headed for class. Miss the assignments, put all night sessions to try and score perfectly, knowing it is too late, make them work all the harder, their faces furrowed the color of ash. If you don't believe me, watch them play basketball at midnight. Stout Korean bodies flying, making their own pale light, making the ball rise like a red moon. A prayer thrown up to God, leaving books for exams stacked high behind in faith, leaving the silence of parents locked in stores, shoulders hunched, bow-legged, exhausted, wondering whether their children knew all this was done for you. How they love this game until dawn, dark bodies, the soot of asphalt thud into one another, the sharp pavement cut of shoes piercing the night, the silence of a basketball leaving the palm. Better make it a good prayer. Okay. Night sessions. And then to wrap up for the next maybe 10 minutes, I'll read from the new book of poems, the one that CavanKerry has so faithfully and diligently beautifully put together. I just have the black and white, but I'm sure Gabe will wave the other ones soon, right? So yeah, I'll just read a few poems from Seattle. Again, all the way across I-90 from Chicago. Existential poem number 1. I lean against a chair, arms hung low, expecting gravity to be suspended. A push exerting back to fill the air, which would otherwise be nothing, and find none. It's a contemporary creation, a friend of mine would say, that the curved arms of this chair exist for a reason, that even the surrounding space of the head, the arms, one's hips, that its form follows function, like the slender bow of reeds in the wind, of the curved contour of a shirt hid shoulder, breath held like an open book's pages fluttering before its closing, breath that does not want its release because it is sweet air, exhaled like one's cloudy exhalation of smoke, its cigarette rough sweetness savored on a gray day. Those shoulders, my friend says, are leveled into the arms, not unlike a young man's wound muscle, down to his knotted fists and fingers, collapsed into the thick seams, its curled length bringing into presence an idea of its own design. One more for the first section of this book, a poem called Spring in Seattle. I thought of reading these poems because it really does represent my family of 5's time in Seattle, which I'm so grateful for. Spring in Seattle, in half-closed shades, a vein wishes to let in the morning, warm yet still cool. I know a door in my bedroom exists because its darkness remains in long squares, longer than the morning light. A seagull's cry from the canal pierces miles of absent gray turning to pastel light. Shells cracking, evergreen sods growing ready to leave their nestle. A dark black and blue blanket, checkered, surround my children nestled within. The friction, sparks that leap in the still yet night light. Let's see here, 7 more minutes. Okay, I'll just read a poem or two from this next section that's called Poems for Harry. Those 2 poems came from a section called Sovereign Asymmetries. So this is a fictional recreation of a Korean American pastor family here in the Chicago area. Okay. 1. Harry Kim awakens, hears what might be the cooing of birds in the early morning half-light yet dark, runs down the hallway to see his father kneel before a chair as a pastor would before an altar or pew. He is praying, Harry discovers, in a tongue that seems to come from the heavens or at least the rafter of pigeons above, and in silent reverence, which equals love for his father, Harry imitates that strange roll and garble of unintelligibles in his mind and later through his own lips. He practices them, imagining their original meaning, the moment now a meditation of sorts, a young child whose brows knit together in a furrow, closing out time. He listens to the curtains unfold, smelling the dust gathering and rays through the open window slits. Five. Harry never saw his parents hold hands, let alone kiss, as sometimes the parents of the neighborhood kids would, coming home before dinner. But Harry would see his parents sitting inches away from one another. Mrs. Kim would roll sesame oiled rice, spinach, yellow pickled radish, and long pieces of meat into a bamboo mat, pressing the roll tight. Mr. Kim would watch eyes half open as if to sleep. How he loved to see the roll sliced vertically, the white, yellow, and black silver separating, cut clean through the core, precise as the rhythm of her amens, uttered through the pauses of her pastor and husband's prayer. The slices black as a lacquer plate hanging on their wall. Two silver men eating from a pearl pot of rice, the moon shining like a nickel, savored in the mouth of a man who would work all night, come home, watch his wife like a potter, take disparate items and roll them together again. Let's see here. 7. To know what work is, watch Harry, a young boy of age 9, burn his thumb on the pot of water. Check if it is boiled enough to place a few beef franks in it, boil them red, broth forming from the fat and beef in its long sacks. Watch Harry put the red hots in their soup in his father's thermos, pack a smaller thermos of coffee and a bag of rice, chanked him to go with his father. Help him clean the spit, gum, and mud of the kids he played with at school. Wash the windows clean and make what Harry's friends made black with their bowels and bladders, porcelain white clear. Watch Harry leave for school as his father comes in from the third shift to go to study, pray for a while, letting his hands straighten from the mop's hold, his hair dry out from the sweat and ammonia, his mind cleaning out as he prayed to his God for sweet rest, strength for the next night, and many thanks for the money to take care of his family. See his fingers callous over the years and turn dark from the lack of oxygen. See him stay up to study and prepare for the road, Sunday's message. Watch Harry's eyes gleam when his father, bag eyes and all, tell Harry that he drank the food, rice, meat, soup, and all, it was good. It was made by his only son, and that Harry must study hard, prepare for the unexpected turns in life, work hard as his father, for before the Lord, that is what work is. I'll read one more from this section. This is Mr. Kim's Brother, poem I created after meeting a lot of Korean veterans in the Vietnam War with the promise that they can come to the US. So this is for Mr. Chang from Indianapolis. Okay. To know Mr. Smith, you have to know that in the 70s, he would travel around, marvel at the excitement of America's secret white flower, cocaine, but would never join in. Marvel that to some, dope was a funny joke, to others good journalism, and to most something to be enjoyed like a cigarette from another world, or at least one that would take you there. Smoke a joint maybe, drink past the midnight hour, definitely, but never past the point of passing out. To lose that moment of alert wakefulness, even at times of peace, was to lose his edge. Even more so after the Korean and Vietnam Wars. The edge, he would tell Harry and his kids, is like the time I went to a bar in Texas, saw a lovely Latina sitting alone. Such beauty matched with such loneliness was like a lost wallet of money suddenly found, like that parable from Jesus himself. Why not sit in silence together, or speak with broken English sighs, or let whatever may come between us arise like the moon and stars together? Her English was fine, and so fine was our conversation, her boyfriend came and asked me to step outside for a lesson, that he would teach me a thing or two. No, thank you, I said in my best broken Konglish, and he began making like a train, smoke billowing from the top of his head and ears, dark things coming from his smokestack of lips. He asked me to step outside again. I said, I speak no English, no Americanese. Then in perfect American English, I growled, so take it easy, dude. People laughing so hard, it sounded more like wolves howling at the moon, which brought only more heat from his head, more smoke, and dark things from his mouth like a stovetop, and told him if I had a skillet, I could have made meat, fried fish, or an egg on his head. He made a fist, and I made bad, laughing at his insolence of his youth. In Korea, in a split second, I would have slapped him, flipped over a table, my friends holding me back. But here in America, and he's so much bigger than me, he hit me and hit me again. His friends pulling out metal knuckles, racks, pipes, anything outside or under their coats, all hitting me groaning with laughter, them stopping when seeing their fleshy abdomens in the corner of my eyes. I back kick like a mule, front kick like an American football punter, side kick like a ballerina. No more laughing, no more chatter, music no longer, only heads getting harder, more dark things from their mouths, fists, shoes hitting me until a hot sweetness black like liquor filled my back, my spine, the bitterness filling my mouth. The police even came, used batons. Even then, I kicked past beyond my hour of consciousness, like your father who prays with such passion. After and before a long day of work, crying as if to ask for the dead to come alive, as if to ask that his own life could be taken, as if another poor soul would instead be blessed. I kicked swiftly at the pin-sized image of their bodies from the size of my head, from the side of my eyes. Yes, those puny eyes they were screaming about. If you don't believe me, check it on the newspapers. They locked me away until I remembered my last name again. It took years, but I am here. It keeps me awake when at night I need to fight off the sleep. And when sleeping, I remember and arise, so the day is yet dark to me in the world. I arise to take back those years lost to me. I arise to the moon, greet the dawning sun to be here and laugh about it with you. I think there's time for two more. This one will be a bit lighter. Okay, that was probably a little heavy there. We're talking about metal knuckles and all sorts of stuff here. So a poem that has been 25 years in the making, largely. It's entitled A Love Poem for My Wife, largely because everyone kept asking me, do you write love poems for your wife? And like the crude caveman I am or was, I'm like, I'm working on one. So here it is. Okay. Thank you, Sandy, for the journey. A love poem for my wife. Today the wind blows, it is Chicago and it is cold. So cold the wind has streaked the clouds into puddle blues, still with resolve, or so it seems. So resolved, the sun tries to set itself lower on the horizon. Lower in Chicago means dropping beneath the line of cement, steel, sand, and lake water. The cemented gray of exhaust of snow, salt-ridden tires, highways covering the city like a maze, cars scurrying like mice. And back to the subject. I do not know why I do not write love poems to my wife. A question asked of me when plain faces turn quizzical, an opening of the eye, a circling twitch of the lips. I do not know why I do not write love poems to my wife. Today, it snows in Chicago. The wind carries a flurry of flakes off the lake. The wind so brusque, it carries itself off the frozen lake, the snow suddenly stopping. It is windy in Chicago. Today, I wish a love poem for my wife would arise like this broken windowed, three-storied red brick building, rise from a field of long dead Chicago grass, yellowed, the whispers of wheat and prairie grass in its head, holding the promise of spring. This building set atop this field, set atop timber, steel, and cut stone cylinders in this muddy marsh, this great layer of jelly, the Chicago cake of clay, water, and gravel. A love poem for my wife that would arise like the sun over Lake Michigan, a red, hazy blanket, like the sun setting, a dark crown over this field, this building, this second city, this city of impossible contradiction, this city of two seasons, winter and construction, the city whose fall season is too short, yet two golden, burnt orange, and brown leaf fall glorious, this city of animals, the bears, cubs, bulls, and the peril, the White Sox, this city of hard work, harder vowels, consonants, and sharp syllables. You can hear it in the mellifluous staccato of its heroes, Mike Ditka, Dick Buckus, Walter Payton. You can hear it in the rattling barrage of the elevated train crisscrossing the city. You see the red lights, the scarlet pair of eyes fading in the distance, wheel sparks in the steel tracks, creating its own heat, creating its own swishing wind, the winter gale off the lake, creating a swirl of snow. This windy city of my birth, this city of broad shoulders. For this Korean American woman I so love, finally, a love poem. 25 years. And the last one, the hyphen, last poem, and I will end on this one. Thank you for hanging in there. The hyphen. I am a flickering flames wick, a wicker. Oh, and I should start. There's a term in here, it's kind of coarse. This is a term that was actually used for me at the last school I worked for. And it caught me so off guard while I was writing this poem. I was like, hey, what a moment. Gotta make a poem out of it. So the hyphen. I am a flickering flames wick, a wicker basket's weaving line, seen and unseen. I am the bastard child between a dash and nothing, the interrupted lines of a road. An elongated period, a blot stretched long, A cat whisker, nose air, eyebrow plucked, floating, tossed midair, tweezed by two parabolic lines hung together by a metal wishbone tip, itself hung together between the thumbs and index finger, the trigger, a pointed digitus secundus. I have a friend named Hyung, an age-old Korean name for older brother, who upon immigration, his fifth grade teacher pronounced Hung, baptizing him a new creation, without water, without the spirit, without even a dog, reborn to a life of questions of his endowment, biological measurements, peeks at the urinal, countless chalkboard games of the four-lettered hangman. I am a sideways comma with no bend, an exclamation point turned horizontal, a blink of ink filling the pores of a blank page, period dropped. A blip of space, bandwidth of light, ones and zeros, off then on, visual code seen, unseen, flash of light infilling the screen like cyberspace rain. The line of what was and what is, like an Asian American. All that excitement, silence, the pain, sorrow, and joy. A have dashed the line between two worlds I am. Thank you, everyone.
Oh man, the worst thing is when you can't get yourself off of mute. I was clapping. Thank you so much, David. This was the energy that you always bring to your readings. Is unique and it's unmatched, and I appreciate that. And I also always appreciate that you preface this new collection with the old collection. You know, you can't have one without the other, so that's perfect. So I appreciate that so much. Let me add myself to the spotlight, as well as bringing back Marina. Everyone, so that was David Cho's first book. Oh my God, no, I have not forgotten a book yet. And I forgot a book, Night Session. Sorry, I get really weird near 8 o'clock, and it's 4 minutes till 8 o'clock. So anyone looking at this YouTube video in the future, you'll catch the weirdness. So that was Night Sessions, and also Half-Life. Thank you so much, both of you. We are starting the Q&A now. As I said, until Friday, David's book, A Half-Life, will be on discount still for pre-order. So please get that. Our books should be coming very soon, so that's exciting. And then Marina, we have Tanto Tanto coming out next month. Let's start talking about the Q&A. And actually, I want to open it up to everyone, so please put questions in the comments. I wanted to start with the hyphenated poem, because both of you do talk a lot about living within the boundaries of different identities, right? The identity politics of immigrantness, of nationhood. And I really dug this reading because there was a multilingualism going on in both collections, whether that was kind of like a bit of vernacular, or also just code switching in terminologies, or even just using different languages. So how does multilingualism enhance or change the outlook of what your work is like? How does multilingualism add to your work when you're presenting it to your audiences?
David, do you want to go first?
I'm still thinking, probably decompressing for the readings. So if you want to go first, please feel free. Yeah.
Yeah, I think first of all, I'm always here for a bilingual, trilingual, multilingual poem. I think we don't only, or at least for myself, I can't exist in just one language, right? I exist in many. So I think, being able to, like you said, code switch, right? Sort of write from my queer language, right, from my Portuguese American, daughter of immigrant language. It allows me to say exactly what I want to say. Growing up, my first language was Portuguese, even though I was born here. So there are a lot of ideas, and there are a lot of expressions, and there are a lot of things that I know how to say in Portuguese that I can't necessarily translate in English. So instead of trying to translate, I'm like, I can just say them, right? And trust my readers to understand what I'm saying, and encourage them to go out and look these words up, right? And sort of give themselves another language, to sort of exist in.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would echo that. I have the sense I'm going to distinctly echo a lot of what Marina says, so maybe she should always go first. But I feel like probably the multilingual is just reflective of probably who we really are in our experiences and makeup.
Mm,
I do think, yeah, translation is difficult. In some ways, it almost seems to flatten those words or those things. And yet, even doing that and then writing, I think through that flattening, I think what I see is bringing one prism to another. And potentially, there's this kind of more beautiful light that can emerge out of these poems and the words. And the difficulty of translation, code switching,
mm.
multilingualism, multiculturalism, all sorts of things, multinationalism,
Absolutely.
almost anything. So multivitamins, I don't know, throw that in there, right? So that's what it really provides, and that's the beauty. When I read was listening to your work, it hit me over and over the beauty that comes through those words and experience and languages, and putting that onto the page and hearing that. So thank you, Marina. Yeah.
Mm. That's
Same. And
excellent.
yeah, and I think the poem becomes its own language too, right? It becomes its own, language that's not, it's not English, it's not Korean, it's not Portuguese, it's the poem, right? And its own words that incorporates and pulls from all these other idioms. So yeah.
Mm,
And one thing I was thinking through Marina's work too, it's not just language and culture, but you talk about the body so much, right? And what it represents, what it presents, all the things that are manifested in and through that. And I think
Mhm.
the word on the page is very much like that. So I really appreciated that focus in your poems also. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
yeah, I do love how the language is like transformative, right? And then sometimes how certain phrases they just have to exist as is, right? Like there's this Spanish expression, "se habla tu idioma," and it's supposed to just translate to "I speak your language," but
Mhm.
idioma is idiom, right? So even thinking about language, words can't exist without those phrases. And those phrases create that body that exists as some sort of image or some sort of art, right? So it's really interesting when we think of memory and we can't think of those memories without thinking of those words, kind of the same way we can't think of memories without thinking about certain events or certain situations. So it's very visceral in the way that language is kind of connected to everything, right? The way we kind of remember all these different stories. That's so wild. That's so wild. I'm going to do one last question and then we're going to go to everyone else's question because as the host, I could get a little selfish as a writer as well. I really want to talk about those long poems. It was so great that both of you read your longest poems that you both have. So thinking about the longest poem you ever written, what's your relationship with it? How do you feel about it? And as a writer, I know sometimes we fear that we'll never write something like that again, right? So is there a fear that you'll never be able to write something that long again or reach that poem's full potential in another body or another idioma or language or form?
Well, what first, attracted me to poetry as, a 10, 11-year-old was the fact that there was this very compact little story or stories, right? So that poem, that long poem, the longest, well, it's one of the, it's definitely the longest, but I only have very few long poems, only because to me poetry is, how can you knock someone out in as few words as possible, right? So I don't aspire to write anything longer than that for sure. I very much love one-page poems. I love long poems too, but I'm not a long poem writer. So when it comes out, it's that poem was meant to be long, right? Because there was a lot that I couldn't really apply my word economy sort of tactic when I'm writing. But yeah, I'm here for the short poems and just celebrate the long ones that just happen to exist.
Trust the process. Trust the process. Excellent. Thank you, Marina.
Yeah, I think probably I write similarly. I think I shoot for like page long poems, kind of in short bursts. So those poems actually came during my time in Indiana as I read. And for me, it just kind of felt like a walk in the wilderness, right? I just thought I was crazy. Some of those I brought into workshop. I maybe they thought I was crazy. I don't know. And just poem after poem, this one long poem kept emerging. But I feel like that's just part of the journey with a lot of these things. So I'm grateful for it. But I don't see myself as like a marathon runner trying to write a longer poem and a longer poem and a longer poem by any means. So just whatever seems to kind of hold that piece of art together. So I'm grateful for the variety. It's a good exercise, I feel like, too. So, yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. And thank you everyone who's been showering Marina and David with praise. I'm going to go towards a question from some of the staff members. So our social media coordinator and our managing editor also left some questions. So this one's from Gabe for both. Many of your poems look directly in the face of bigotry and violence, and yet there is a core of joy, wonder, and love of life that emerges and rises above and triumphs. How do you strike that balance so perfectly? Your books give so much hope for the world.
You can't have joy without knowing what pain or sadness is, right? Joy wouldn't exist without its counterpart, which is pain. So I think once, ever since, Thich Nhat Hanh died, I've been really sort of diving back into his work and really just kind of thinking about how, in order to, not to get all philosophical, but again, in order to feel joy, in order to have hope, in order to be happy, you have to understand that, the opposite of that will have to occur as well in order for these things to exist. So knowing that, again, lack of a better word, there's a yin and a yang, right? So I think writing, you can't write a happy poem without knowing what it's like to be sad first, right? And I think honoring both those things, right? Honoring the dark and the light of things, and giving voice to both of them equally, is sort of the way I am able to produce, writing through violence and writing through pain. I'm writing through trauma in order to celebrate, sort of the light and good.
Thank you. It's wonderful.
Yeah, for me, it's probably just a reality of life. There are things that obviously go on every day that are quite terrible and horrendous. And yet there are unexpected things and expected things that go that way. And yet there are beautiful things that always shock me all the time. So I think the poems are just an expression of that daily experience and that reality. I think probably the trick I've also learned over time, in my 49 years of age, the reading glasses, and my office celebrated my 50th birthday, but I'm 49, right? So I'm milking it for every day. Yeah, that's right. But yeah, I also feel like those things that are meant to bring me or other people down, if there is no joy in the purpose of what we experience every day, then it also has given weight to that. And I just personally don't like that. I don't like that there is no resilience or no stand, or there's not something within us that has a greater design and purpose that's meant for this moment. And so just writing about that, in that, and through that, and calling that out, I think is one of the principal burdens, but I mean in a good way, but it's not easy, of a poet. We are called to write through that experience. And I think that is also a form of resistance. I also think that's why in so many moments of so much trauma, poetry, the arts, all those things, voices just matter so much. And I think that's all part of the experience. So it's a calling I think we all are called to embrace. And particularly in this world that we call America, this part of this world, it's something we need to write about as it brings these things together and explores those things. Yeah.
Right. Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's the idea of poetry just exploring all of those different avenues, or the arbitrariness of what this binary of like what good or bad would be, right? Or like kindness and violence. There's so much to explore there in terms of there being gray areas and gradients, that it carries all of those emotions. When there is an emotion of anger, there's also some other emotion that is in that mix. And I see that happening when I read a poem, right? You can't read a poem that is ever one note when it's in a book. There's always different kinds of emotions that you're going to be able to draw upon on whatever you're feeling, whatever the writer is trying to elicit. It's really great. The idea of going to a poem every time and it being different, a different experience, or an art piece, looking at an art piece. It's quite brilliant. A lighter question now. What is your ideal writing space?
Wherever no kids are. No, I love that question. It's it's in the morning with a cup of coffee and close to a window and where there's lots of sunlight. Yeah. And like I said, no screaming children behind you.
For me, I would love that, and moments in life when that happens. I also feel like, though, maybe it's the blue collar of life growing up. If you can just make it a daily part of your schedule and schedule that in because it's a priority. I'm not good at it though, right? Yeah, so probably neither of us kind of jobs in those situations too. But I think that's also, I think, been really what's carried me through over the years. And I mentioned, I just credit Marianne Baruch at Purdue. She used to always talk about this image journal, and whenever you see an image, write that down. And her thing was like seeing a kid with it's like a nickel, rubbing it so hard she could actually see the image of the nickel on the thumb and the second finger. Write that down. So it's always carried me through, and I think all these poems have emanated out of that. So just keep it going, right? Even if it's a grind. Yeah. And those beautiful days with nobody screaming in the background, that'd be great.
Absolutely. And let's hear it for blue collar poetry as well.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Right? Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, let's hear it for that. All right, so I think we're rounding out at the end of this reading. It's already 8:10. Thank you so much for everyone who's been able to stay after the 8 o'clock time to listen to this Q&A. And again, a round of applause for David and Marina. I do want to end with one last question before we let everyone else come on and say their goodbyes. If you could give any piece of advice to the author in you 20 years ago, what would have it been?
It wouldn't be writing advice, Dimitri, but it would be to write about what scares you. Write from a place that scares you.
Yeah, I was right. I think I'm going to echo a lot of what she just said. I think that is really pivotal. I also think just going to those bookstores, those random ones, wherever, and finding those books of those most obscure writers can sometimes inspire you to no end. And within Asian American Lit and Studies, there are a group of people that constantly do that. And if it wasn't for their work that I was inspired by, I don't know if I'd be doing it now. So that has been all the difference for me. These previous writers that nobody actually even knows of. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, there's so much writing out there, right? And exploring all those crevices are so important because all these voices have value, all of them. So yeah, write what scares you from Marina and David, and also explore your public libraries, explore those indie bookstores. Super, super important. Thank you again so much. I am going to take everyone off spotlight and I'm going to let everyone come on. You can all unmute yourselves and say goodbye. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Yeah.
Thanks, y'all. Thanks, Dr. Cho.
Thank you.
Awesome stuff. Love it.